got partially detained because of very bad news. Very good friend of mine, David Antonio. I was dealing with the news of his passing.
Yeah, you told me that 2 days
Yes.
ago. Wow.
So-
Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
Sorry to hear that, Frank.
Yeah, you got bombarded with a lot of calls, but that's no excuse for not being here. It's just I got stuck in the traffic. I forgot.
It's okay, you
LA
said, you know.
Traffic
As
is
long
light.
as you get here, that's all we care
Yeah.
about, and you get here safely.
Remember he said, make sure that Jacob lets me talk? Well, I had my 10 minutes, now you go to
Yeah, it's funny because they both, I have to say it, they both said the same thing. They're like, well, he talks more than I do, so he's going to keep talking. So it's like,
You know, I've been around Frank now, how many years? 1983? I don't know, I
Yeah.
tried to figure it out. It's 37 years. That's a long time.
Yes.
yes, that's a long
It's probably
relationship.
very close.
Welcome to the show, Frank. It's
Thank
such
you.
an honor to have you here.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure.
These two together in one room. I mean, this is amazing. There's a lot. Oh, he's already tapping in. Jacob Sensei is already tapping into the SWAT field. We're getting into that later. So that's going to be for class on Friday.
Is it going to make me more attractive?
Ask Lee that question.
You know,
You won't sleep.
I won't sleep. That's not a good thing for me. I mean, I don't like any substance that make me more hyper than what I am.
Yeah.
I'm already an alpha male and hyper, and I'm trying to be actually
Contain.
more contained and whoos, you know. So
Well, we'll help you with that.
nothing that makes me weird
More
or
hyper?
wired up. I don't need that. I need something that makes me healthier, stronger. That's the principle of
This is
getting to
healthier
my
and
age.
stronger. Yes, absolutely. So we'll dive into that. I want to welcome Frank to the show. And Jacob, we were talking. Sensei was just talking about his life and how he got into the Krav Maga. And let's dive into. Obviously, we're gonna go back into where it all began for you, Frank.
Where to begin?
Yes, right.
The younger
There's so many
Yes.
different people in my life who played a pivotal role as you come to different crossroads in your life. So there's really never one beginning. There's always a new beginning to a new adventure, a new track in my life. So I don't know where you begin.
Well, let's start with, obviously, a lot of people, world famous movie, Bloodsport. Everyone wants to know about that.
Yes.
Everyone, it's legendary. It's one of those movies you play over and over. Dan and I were talking earlier, again, we were trying to see who watched it more. He beat me by 100 and something. So, I mean, how did that all begin for you? That was based on real life for you.
Yeah. In fact, I wrote a script. Originally, I actually brought it to Jacob, believe it or not. He had a casting scene. He was producing films. Only it was called then Enter the Ninja, and it was Bloodsport with one different component, and that was sort of like a mixture of Death Wish. When between the fights, the character go out and do good deeds and deal with bad guys. I told the story to Sheldon Lettich. He in turn took the story, adapted it, and I had helped Sheldon do a film called Firefight because he wanted to be a director and he needed a reel. Jacob was really instrumental in helping on that, and unfortunately Sheldon wasn't exactly too nice to Jacob. It's one of those typical Hollywood stories. And I guess it should have been a warning to me because later on, he did the same thing to me. He basically took credit for my story, and then I was nowhere to be seen on it.
We're coming after you, Sheldon.
It sounds like
We haven't
it.
forgot after 40
Yeah,
years.
and that's kind of what really happened, and then it became a pattern behavior to the point where it finally ended in a lawsuit between me and Van Damme when they took my name off what became the Quest. And of course, if you look at the credits and you go back, you'll see who's writing right after me is Sheldon Lettich, and then followed by the guys who did Bloodsport. And of course, I didn't get paid or the credit I should have had, and that's one of the reasons I left Hollywood. I just got tired of that, we'll take care of you, promise you kind of thing that goes on, and I just said, you know what, enough. You guys don't want to, feed the flower. Guess what? It doesn't bear the fruit. You don't eat. And that's what it really comes down to.
You bet.
And you can see a definite attributable pattern there when I left and what happened to their successes, or not even their successes, just go by the films themselves and what they've done and the quality of them and what the effect they've had on other people. I mean, you look at Lionheart, It was the largest grossing film of its year that I was brought back by Jean-Claude after he tried to go and work with Sheldon without me for like 2 or 3 pictures. And then I was brought back to do several others, and I never got credit for. So that's the old Hollywood story, but like I said, I actually have myself to blame for that because I saw what Sheldon had done to Jacob, and that was an early on experience, and I should have learned from that. And if anything, I want your listeners to, when you see those red flags, I'm going to tell you to listen to them. I'm not perfect, I'm far from it. And when you see those things, pay attention to them. That's the only defeats I've ever really had in my life, is when I didn't listen to my inner gut, or I tried to be the nice guy, play the middle of the road, and I find that doesn't work. When you compromise principles, or you allow other people to compromise principles, you're just as guilty, and then you deserve what you got. And I got what I got, as a result of that.
Let me just add something to that, because I was right there with Frank, and we were training in the studio, and Frank walks up to me one day and says, "Look, I wrote a script called Fire Trace, and it's based on a big play that played in LA for 10 years, which I'm kind of funny doing a movie now coming in. It's called Straight from the Hood, and it's about a play that was very successful in LA for 20 years. One of my clients, Jeff Rios, is actually going to direct it, and he co-wrote the script, and it's about the blacks and the browns in LA,
Right.
the whole background, and it's a very sensitive area. Well, when he came up with that thing, because I'm a military guy, and he was talking about traces and about this unit, stuck in da-da-da-da-da, and then he says, a friend of mine. Now, maybe, you know me a little bit by now, Tracy, but when somebody becomes a friend to me, or to Frank, I believe so, because I've known Frank for a long time.
Yes.
We'll give the shirt off our back, whatever we can.
Yeah.
And since I was already in the casting business and starting producing, in 1983 I co-produced my first movie that went worldwide and sold through Shapiro Glickenhaus. He said, Sensi Jacob, would you come on board and be a producer and help me out and start with the casting? I met Sheldon, he acted very nice in the beginning, and I did all the casting, and he said, nobody's getting paid. Frank, that's why he didn't get paid.
Yeah.
Nobody's getting paid at the
Exactly.
time, when you're starting in the
I'm
business.
the one who put up money for the film.
Yeah, when we're starting in the business, we've done a lot of stuff, which I still do until today after almost 38 years of working it. I help youngsters, I go and work for nothing or for a fee that is less than minimum wage, just, to inspire the next generation.
Right.
But what I learned is that people really don't appreciate experience. People fear experience.
Yeah.
People fear older person coming into our young life. It's a new generation. I hear that from my kids even. I hear it from people that I'm around.
Yeah.
The only place I don't hear it, it's martial arts, because people do respect elderly. They respect the mastery. They respect the time and effort you put in it and the sweat and blood that you paid for it. And that's why some of my friends says, look, you making us look bad. How could you teach a class, as you know, Tracy, for $10? And I go, because for me, it's just a principle. It's not about the money. And I don't say you don't deserve to make money. Other friends of mine, Krav Maga, as Frank knows, make a lot of money teaching what I'm teaching, and they're not even close to the skill or the knowledge. And I'm not saying I'm something special. It's just that I did pay my dues. I've done a lot of work, and I know, and I'm the original. So the point is that I was trying to say about the movie business is, until today, it's not changed, like Frank says. People take advantage of people. They act very nice in the beginning. They're trying to put their foot in, whatever they can get from you to help them. They play very vulnerable and like, oh, I don't have it, I don't have this. Anyway, Sheldon met a guy that became a cameraman that I actually brought into the project to a friend of mine, Mickey Blowitz, that we both know, Peter, and the guy had a camera. So Sheldon went, and that should have showed the character of the guy, and made him a producer, because he says, well, I'll bring my camera, and I have a line to the, what was it called, Camp Pellington, and I can do this, and I can do that. So without discussing with Frank or me, that started the whole project with him, he decided to make the guy a producer, and then I get a note from him, very, very professional. Well, listen, we did this and that and then. I said, well, why is he a producer? And he goes, well, we can give you an executive producer. Isn't that a great title? I said, I don't care what the title is. My agreement was I'm a producer in the show. I did all the work for free. I brought this guy on.
Yeah.
So I said, so you know what? I'm walking off the show, with all the respect. And I told Frank, I'm walking off the show, but my fee is going to be $960. And the guy says, well, you signed a contract, there's deferment, no pay. I said, no pay, I will show up to your office and we'll talk then. And if it wasn't for Sensei Frank that was there and said, come on, Sensi Jacob. You know, I was ready to go there like the good old Hollywood, and
Jacob would have smacked him around.
with a
Yeah.
baseball
Yeah, I
bat
mean, he
and
was
take care
just-
of his BMW that he had at
Not a baseball bat. You just give him a good shin kick. I mean, I knew.
I've seen you in action. You don't need a baseball bat.
He didn't. Here's the thing. He
No,
was
let
deeply
me just say
insulted.
something. The truth is that
Yeah.
I talked to Frank, and of course, because he introduced me to the guy, I kind of whined and bitched at him, and he ended up paying the money for that guy.
Oh wow.
So I walked away from the show. I never got a credit, never got nothing. That show actually started Sheldon's life as a director. And from there, he went to take the script with Frank, you know, and made Bloodsport. And then after that was other movies. And then he came back and got a great script from him. One of the best, I think, that I ever done, called Lionheart. Probably
yeah.
the best action movie that Van Damme did. Yes, he's known for Bloodsport, but Lionheart was a really good acting, martial arts, well put together movie by him. And, you know, I mean, I met Van Damme. I went with Menachem Golan, God bless his soul, that started him in the whole business.
Yeah.
I know the whole story, how Van Damme even got the job. And I was in his house in Malibu, and I mean, in Marina del Rey.
Yep.
And he was pretty nice. He was a very nice guy. I met him before in parties at the
Yeah.
American Film Market. And he was kind of like, you know, with bodyguards and people pushing. But when I went to his house, he was open and
Seemed
very
humble
nice and acted very sweet, and he was very, very grateful and still nice to Menachem Golan, although he disagreed to make another movie for him. So, you know, this is the world we live in, and unfortunately, it's the world of martial arts. The world of the movie business, the music business is even worse, because
Yeah.
people really take advantage of other people. So I agree with Frank. If you feel in the beginning that something is wrong, if your gut says, you know, this is not right, why am I trying to work it out? Walk away. It'll be another opportunity. We
Yeah.
got burned so many times, it's not even funny.
I
Yeah.
couldn't agree more. And what I love about this is that you two are still sitting here together today. And, you know, and we do learn from our lessons. We do learn from that. Because, you know, it's our instinct. And we instinctually know when those red flags are going off. I know I've made so many decisions in my life that have, you know, come back to bite me in the butt as well. So I'm so glad that you two are, you know, here today together, and you've had this, you know, working and friendship relationship for so many years now, and it's obviously very strong. And I love that, the appreciation and the respect of the martial arts. You've got a lot of world records and world titles. I mean, I was looking at them today. I wouldn't even know where to start. What is your most, when you look at those world titles that you have, Frank, how do you feel about that? I mean,
Well, I was always in competition with myself. See, that's the secret. So you're never in competition with somebody else. You just be in competition with yourself. And I want to make it real clear. You know, the organizations put them on. They aren't very big. You know, the IFA, you know, Black Dragon Society, it's its own unit. It's not a league like of the caliber of like UFC that you see today. But it was a league. It was, you know, competitors from all over the world.
of course.
Maybe it had its own limited base. You know, they were certainly accomplished fighters in those times, and it was a different era. You have to remember, this is a pre-internet age. This is when Black Belt magazine was in black and white and had very little content. You know, most of these, you really had to struggle to get information, and that's what really fueled these fights. You'd go out because you never saw what a Taekwondo guy did or a Tang Soo Do guy did in actual competition. You know, you might see them in the studios, but even then it was just they were just starting to get known. You know,
The Olympic Games or something.
yeah. I mean, it was just you know, it was just barely known what you would see the caliber of fighters, and I was very fortunate that I was one of the first cross-trained kind of fighters. I did weightlifting when everybody said it was totally against that. They were totally against any kind of strength training in those days. And the reason they were against it is because they felt it slowed you down. And there were some valid points to it because endurance was really a big part of it. The more mass you have, of course, the harder it is to stay in condition and keep your wind going.
Well, I'm curious, what are
Yeah.
your thoughts on that today, both of Sensei Jacob and Sensei?
Well, me, I go straight back to the sciences. It's all physics. It's really about speed times mass, and that's what really determines your power. So, some people, if you're really slow, then you need more mass. If you're a smaller guy and super quick,
Yeah.
you know, it doesn't make sense to put on that extra mass if it's going to slow you down. So you have to think of things in a very scientific point of view. The other thing is, I'm self-taught, and I've gotten a lot of trouble early on in 1980 because I was telling people, I said, look, my system is Dukes-Ryu. Ninjutsu is a martial art, but it's in the sense of it was a modern martial art.
Okay.
Okay. Whereas this other group came out and they started using the term and saying, no, it's 4 generations old and only one lineage exists, and they created this image of the ninja, which is really taken out of the folklore, where they, put together certain things of themselves and disappear in a cloud of smoke and turn into shapeshift into animals and all sorts of things. And actually it has some basis in truth in the sense of, if you studied it in the ancient texts, it was really occult practices. It was really a form of self-hypnosis where they would say these certain incantations, and that would calm a guy thinking he was invisible to the guards, so he wouldn't panic and over hyperventilate, breathe harder. And so there's something to it.
You need a whole
Yeah.
show of 2 hours just to get Frank to explain you what this stand's all about.
Yeah.
And it's funny because through the years I've been with Frank, and when I talk about Frank or see him places or people ask me, I get asked all the time, well, what do you think about Frank? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And I always tell the people, I don't say I take the fifth, but I always tell people, listen, people done what they done. I don't talk about some things I've done. My friend Sam Sadeh, other people that I know that are world-class fighters. They've been in combat, they've been in the face of enemy, that we had, like soldiers and the special forces that have bullets flying around them and mortar around them and people die in front of them. You have a tendency, if you've done something, you don't need to talk about it too
That's
much.
right.
They say a dog that wants to bite you is not going to bark too much, it's just going to jump and get you. And I've worked with some of those dogs too in the military, and I know that for a fact. If you didn't wear the right collar, and they were trained to just attack.
Yes.
So they will not give you a warning. Get out of here, I'm gonna, those are the chihuahuas. You come at home and they just bark a lot and go by your feet. You give them a kick and they make a football kick. But here it goes about what I'm thinking to answer your question. I think that when people are trying to build mass and make the muscle and stuff like that, it's okay. And I work with people like Lou Ferrigno and stuff like that. And it's a wonderful thing that you can actually have that discipline to build the body, as you know, to that degree. You have to have dedication and special food and vitamins and, it takes a lot of work, and all it is to work your body up. But the martial arts is more about, was created for the smaller person to be able to defend himself against a bigger adversary, a bigger opponent, But I've always said, if you get a big guy that is well trained, you better have some good Nike shoes, and run fast. Because if you're 6'4" and you're well trained, like the 5'5" guy that is a kung fu master, if you have the same skills and you're 6'4", yes, then the mass makes a big difference. So when you're talking about the UFC and people like that, can you put a lightweight or flyweight against a heavyweight? And then UFC.
I want to make a point out that we're talking right now just hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah.
It becomes a great equalizer when you start putting weapons in people's hands. So, I've seen guys who are like 4'11".
They don't need to fight.
Okay, and I've watched them cut a guy down who's like 6'8", cut him down in size.
Yeah.
It's all comes down to the weapon system in that case.
Are you saying they're using one of those?
So, but it really comes down to the weapon system.
You like that?
Yeah. And
We had a car outside. When you're not looking, I'll hit you.
Let me answer to Tracy about one more thing. When you're talking about people after almost 40 years being together, doing things, being through the martial arts, and we're still here laughing and stuff like that, Frank is a family.
Yes,
and I hope I'm a family to him.
Absolutely.
I know I was there in his father's funeral, God bless his soul. Yeah. I went and seen his mother. He knows my kids from young age. I'm going to quote my dad, one thing that my dad said to me, and God bless, it takes many, many years to understand your father is a guy. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. He said, son, before you die, if you made friends where you can count them on one hand, you had a good life. And I go, what the hell are you talking about? I got so many friends. I got 20 guys in karate, 50 guys in martial arts, movies.
You're not real friends.
And then,
so true.
The minute that the shit hits the fan, they all bend over and let it go over their head. So the ones that are really your friends, real friends,
could be better than your family, could be better than close people to you, because you only judge them and you only test them by that. And so are you. If you're a really good friend to somebody, there is no question, well, what do you need $50, Frank, for? And when are you going to give it back to me? You just do. As a friend, you don't expect nothing but being open-hearted and being a friend to that guy. And that's why I'm saying back again to, in the military, you know, when you go to war, Frank, you know, the guy watching you six, what they call it, is your family.
Yeah.
You don't have pop and mom to watch you.
Well, like the old expression goes, band of brothers.
You know?
You know, that's a World War II term that the airborne used to use.
So, you know, we're going through a big thing now with the NFL and people kneeling and people sitting and stuff like that. And you know, unfortunately, our president that I voted for is a guy that hasn't stopped thinking as the guy that is a producer of a Be the Boss or something like that. You know, if he could adjust himself just to act like more diplomatic as a president, there is some charm to what he does. There is also bad things. For example, he said, if you can't see that son of a, you know what, fire them. He just could have explained simply, like a guy explained this morning, about why did they do what they do, and also say, separate flag and ownership and country and the anthem from, you know, personal, you know, stands with equality or bad behavior of police or some other things like that, illegals. You know, we all experience equality or not equality, but again, if you fight for the flag, if it's national, your anthem, if you're proud of your country, that has nothing to do with, you know, people being not treated right. So that's what I think he was trying to say across.
Shifting him out of this celebrity apprentice mode and putting him more into a presidential role, and being able to articulate his words so that other people can understand.
So hopefully
so much going on, and there's been a lot of adversity. I know it's been very controversial, your career.
Well, I wouldn't call it controversial. There's a difference, okay?
Yeah.
Controversy is based in some level of fact, and there's a difference between, and this is where I get very angry, there's a difference between controversy and being a target of actual trade libel, and that's the difference.
Yeah.
A good example of that was just proven by a newspaper called The Art Voice, national syndicated magazine that looked into, and it was the first one to actually do this, to look into my past. Actually, they interviewed me for over 3 months, and they looked into everything, and they started finding their own truth and their own leads. And then the first article they came out with was, the LA Times said, oh, I fabricated one of my mentors, which was Senso Tanaka, that it really comes out of the movie You Only Live Twice. There's no evidence for that. Well, that's a total, complete lie. If you go down to the California or the Los Angeles County Court of Records, you can find his birth certificate, his death certificate, you can find his immigration card. I mean, it was there, okay? But because this reporter told a lie, he actually told a lie, and it appears in print, everybody accepted that as being truthful. They accepted the fact, they said, I bought my trophy near a trophy manufacturer near my home. Another lie. The so-called receipt that he had was never a receipt. It was a Xerox copy of what would look like a receipt someone could make up on their
home computer. I read that.
Yeah. And
ridiculous.
Well, not only that, but it was done so badly by whoever did this.
Yeah.
And I pointed out to the reporter and the editor, and they still went ahead and printed that story with this as so-called evidence. It wasn't even for the same trophy. It was for a 3-tiered trophy.
Yeah.
Mine's, if you saw mine, it appeared in Black Belt magazine.
I saw that, yeah.
Which they took the picture of it in 1976, mind you. The receipt at that time when we were first in their offices, was dated 1982. My attorney pointed out and says, look, he's in the magazine here, published in 1980, holding the trophy, and it's not even the same trophy. You know, yet they made that assertion, which to me shows malice. And then he said I gave him stuff, which is a complete lie, that I gave him articles, another lie. And these lies have been compounded over times, and it was all about the fake ninja thing. Well, what it was really about, the subtext of that is they were creating the illusion that ninja is a title, the ninjas were a sect separate and apart from the samurai, and here I am absolutely saying the opposite, and I was a spoiler to what turned out to be, you know, $1 billion industry. You know, that's the reality. And I'm coming out with a book called Ninjas Are, you know, I'm probably get this censored, but Ninjas Are Bullshit. That's the name of the book. And It's a very technical book. It's referenced. It's footnoted, and it explains the real history of the shinobi, which is what they're really called, and how it comes from China, and through the land bridge of Korea, and how the text, the Bonsen Shukai, was written. And even if you read the Bonsen Shukai, which is the basis of everything, it even says it came from outside of Japan. So all the things I was talking about was a real threat to this group, including the magazines that were making a fortune. The magazines were publishing the books under a different title, corporate title, so people didn't realize that there's no arm's distance between them, and the level of corruption and racketeering that was taking place. And I was a target of racketeering, and that's that simple. And
Let me
That explains why you're targeted
let me just
so
say
much.
something, Frank.
Yeah.
Let me say something. You know, it's like anything else, like this show business that we in, martial arts business, anything like that. When Frank made that movie and wrote the script, and Sheldon made the movie, and the movie came out, you know, everybody wanted to interview him, put him in a magazine, this and that and that. You know, like we have Fox News and stuff like that. Now, LA Times came in with an article, now everybody wanted to execute him, blame him, make him a liar. You know, when it's funny, when you're on the top there, everybody wants to be your friend. Then as soon as somebody says something bad about you, everybody's trying to say something bad about you. We see that with everybody, the Kardashian and everything like that. It's just money making, it's newspaper, it's the entertainment business bullshit that we're in, excuse my language.
That's right.
It's
true.
not reality, you know what I'm saying? It's not the truth. You know, nobody really made any kind of effort to find out the truth. I mean, I was there with Frank when he was young and handsome.
thank you.
And he's still young and handsome.
And I've
Both
seen
of
him
you guys
6'4"
are.
A little bit. I
I've seen a
got to
six-
name it if I don't get in the gym
I've
here.
seen a 6'4"
We're
guy.
gonna work out together.
What I want to say,
Yeah.
Tracy, is I've seen a 6'4" guy
Yeah.
lifting up his leg and kicking, probably at about 7 feet high, a bottle of champagne, and busted it with his shin. I was there in the studio with him. I can't say, well, you know what, I can't really say that. I don't know. I've seen it.
Yeah.
If I didn't see it, and people that know me will go, well, Sensi Jacov doesn't lie. I don't lie.
No, you
Have I
don't.
seen all the rest of the things? Have I seen he do kumite and beat up 50 people? No, I wasn't there, so how can I say that? But there is things that I was with Frank. I was at his studio.
Yeah.
I don't go and teach for people that I think that are just lame or stupid or they don't have what they say they do. I respected him, you know. Ed Parker walked into his studio. We talked about knives. He said, "Hey, that's exactly what I would do."
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. They became friends. You know, I went and trained with Mr. Parker. So, hey, another friend in here,
And
old
we
school.
just found out, I just found out we got so into the conversation that it's actually 5 o'clock. So there was no countdown there.
Can
I
we throw Jesse out
apologize.
of here? We just
Yeah. And so we're
What's up,
going to
brother?
have a part 2 of this.
Absolutely.
You know, I respect both of your careers so much, and also, you know, Sensei Jacov Bresler for what you've taught me as an instructor. And, you know, I've followed your career, Frank, and it was such an honor to meet you at the Action on Film Festival in Vegas. And, you know, I want to learn more about you. And
Well, Friday.
we're so, yes. Are we all going to be there on Friday?
I hope Frank
Frank,
comes
are
and
you
visit.
coming?
He did last
What
night.
was on Friday?
In my class, you know.
Oh, your
James
class.
So I
Oh,
want
yeah.
to thank
No, I'm coming to
Frank
class.
Dukes for coming on the show today, Jacov
I thought it was another
Bresler,
interview or
and we're sponsored by SWAT Fuel, guys. We're here every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the TLC Unleashed show, Hollywood Vibes, Sports and Life. We're definitely having a part 2. Thank you so much for coming on today, you guys.
Thank you for
Thank
having
And
you.
we'll
us.
see you guys next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, that was interesting.
That
Yeah,
just,
See, the
Absolutely.
problem with
You
us
didn't
is
even
we
give me
can
a
sit and
countdown.
talk.
I know.
We can talk for
I
2
was-
days.
was
I was
so-
so wrapped up in it. I wasn't
usually we
doing
get a
my
15
job.
minute. I'm
You know,
sorry
you're
we had
talking
to wrap it
to
up
some
so
people
quick.
that are old timers,
That was
almost
good.
pioneers
Oh my
of this
gosh.
crazy business.
I was just
From
getting,
movies to
we
martial
just
arts.
got warmed up.
Yeah.